CBS News correspondent David Begnaud is opening up about his journey to manage Tourette syndrome. The syndrome is a neurodevelopmental disorder that's characterized by involuntary movements and vocalizations known as tics. The Tourette Association of America estimates 1 out of every 160 children between the ages of 5 and 17 has Tourette syndrome.
People with Tourette sometimes also suffer from ADHD or OCD. There is no cure for Tourette's, but there are various treatment options. David Begnaud is joining us here alongside Amanda Talty. She's the president and the CEO of the Tourette Association of America. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
David, first let's talk about your experience. Why is it the perfect time to talk about your experience with Tourette's, and what made you want to open up about it?
I didn't want to.
You didn't?
No. My college magazine was doing a profile, and they called one of my mentors who said, you know, I think I'm inspired mostly by his overcoming of Tourette's. So like any good journalist, he called me and he goes, so you don't have to talk about this if you don't want. I don't mean to offend you, but do you mind? And I said, with one condition. Don't sugarcoat how bad it was, but don't dramatize it either. There was plenty of drama in it. And that sort of led me to open up. My mother actually said to me yesterday, your father and I are surprised you're talking because you didn't want to talk about it as a child. So even opening up about it has been a journey for me.
David, when I read this about you, it was really surprising.
We were both talking about
you are, no, I mean, people, we talk for a living here, right? But some people are particularly eloquent, more eloquent than others, and you're a good talker. You know what I mean? So I was really, really surprised. Can you give me sort of a sense of how bad was it? And, you know, how much this has sort of shaped who you are?
You say surprised. Surprised that I hadn't talked about it?
No, surprised that you ever had it to begin with.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I think it has been, Anne-Marie, my Achilles heel, but also the fuel that has driven me, right? So the ability to propel me forward, but the setback that can hold me back. Look, I've had friends, and I'm not going to give any names, but there was a coworker here at CBS who asked me recently, are you doing drugs on the side? Because of the sniffing I was doing. And I have been sniffing all my life, and I've had past bosses say to me that coworkers have come and asked if you were doing drugs.
Interesting.
Right?
And so was that a coping mechanism or is that a tic?
It's a tic.
Oh.
It's a tic, which is exacerbated by stress. Most often my tics, whether, you know, I have this tic with I might as well show it, like let's just go there. I have this tic that it's kind of this. My tongue protrudes out and I make a little noise, a vibrating noise. Or sometimes I'll do this with my neck. And when I'm in a stress environment like breaking news, which tends to be the life I live, that's when it presents. And the sniffing constantly. If you go in an edit bay and listen to an interview I've done, you hear little sniffs throughout the entire tape.
That's fascinating.
So what did you do to overcome Tourette's?
What I love is that you said managing when you introduce a segment. You didn't say overcome, because I don't know if I've overcome it.
Right.
I think life is about management of it. I'm not currently on medication. There really is no key medication for it. They gave me blood pressure medication as a 6-year-old, and I still wonder if that was the right thing to do. I remember going to sleep in 5th grade. I changed schools so many times, my parents held me back. My dad homeschooled me, and when I went to 5th grade, I would fall asleep in class, and the kids would tattle, as kids do. And the teacher said, he's less disruptive when he's sleeping, so let him sleep. And I had a blood pressure patch on my back. So I don't have medication today. I do a lot of meditation. I do a lot of just trying to be mindful of it when I notice it, or when I catch other people looking at me and I'm like, why are they gawking at me? And it's probably because I'm ticking.
Amanda, this statistic, 1 out of every 160 children between the ages of 5 and 17 is surprising to me. When I saw that, I thought there must be a lot of kids that go undiagnosed.
Absolutely. So we say it's actually 1 in 100 school-age children have Tourette syndrome or a tic disorder. So what we find is that a lot of times children have tic disorders that are not diagnostically exactly Tourette syndrome, so therefore they go with this sort of lesser diagnosis of tic disorder. But we estimate about 50% of those children are going undiagnosed.
Wow.
So there's a huge gap in terms of those impacted versus those who have a diagnosis.
What have you learned about what people understand of Tourette syndrome, and what is it that people don't get about it?
Well, I mean, I think first and foremost, everybody that I come across automatically thinks that somebody with Tourette syndrome has the cursing disorder, which is just blatantly false. About 10% of those impacted with Tourette syndrome have what we call coprolalia, which is the utterance of obscene words. But that's the first thing people go to, and I can't tell you how many unfortunate jokes I've heard when people learn where I work. So I think that's the one thing that I would like people to take away. People with Tourette syndrome are not necessarily uttering obscenities. You know, beyond that, I think it's just important that people also realize this is a lifelong condition. So while we say that, you know, children can grow out of their tics, about 2/3 of those who have Tourette syndrome as a child do go on throughout life with some tics, some, you know, more mild, as David had mentioned about his own experience, but some very severe into adulthood. And there is no medication specifically for the treatment of Tourette.
Do we know anything about a cause at all? What's the research like into Tourette's?
Well, we fund a lot of research. That's one of the arms of our mission. And what we have come to learn is that there is a genetic, hereditary factor to Tourette syndrome. So our geneticists have found that it's more like height than it would be a specific gene. There's a lot of genes that come together to then, you know, have somebody have Tourette syndrome as a child. But there is no cure. We have not had a cause, but there is a lot of work being done to really explore it. There's also been some significant work done in terms of the mapping of the brain and the brain matter versus white matter versus gray matter in the brain, and the differences that exist there in those with Tourette syndrome and those without.
It's interesting to hear you talk about genetics. My father, though not diagnosed, would tell you he has a case of Tourette's, right? Some tics and those kinds of things. You know, guys, my parents never allowed me to use it as an excuse. And even though I didn't like talking about it because it was so debilitating as a child, given the bullying that I endured, and that's really the kid I feel sorry for. I don't feel sorry for this adult. I feel sorry for that kid. I feel really sorry still today.
I mean, David, you coming out and sharing this story, I don't know anybody who's got a national platform the way that you do that has come out and talked about their experiences with Tourette's. I mean, you know, you appear on camera, so that does give you a certain level of I don't want to use the word fame, but you are known. You are a known person in this country and abroad. And so I think when a child or somebody who's young sees your story and hears from you about what it was like to manage Tourette's, they will at least feel as if there is, I can only imagine how bleak it must be if you don't know anybody and you feel like you're all alone.
I know what it was like to be that kid, to want to hear someone else's story with Tourette's. And that's what I want to be. The only reason I wanted to be here today, and I'm so grateful that you came, is I just want to use this to try and create a conversation that either leads to some type of tolerance, and if we're lucky, acceptance, right? We all have some kind of condition that we're fighting, right?
Yeah,
we all want to know,
sure.
as Oprah says, do you hear me, and does what I have to say matter? I have Tourette's. It has mattered to me in my life in ways that have been severely debilitating, but also exhilarating. I don't use it as an excuse. It has been something of a blessing. But I want to make sure that other kids who are watching this and their parents will in some ways be inspired by my journey, which I believe has been successfully blessed.
All right.
I think we will leave it there. David Begnaud, Amanda Talty, thank you both for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.